세 번째 강연자를 소개해 드릴 텐데요. 세 번째 강연은 정치학자인 나탈리아 그린 사무총장님입니다. 자연을 권리로 주체로 인정하고 보호하는 정책, 법적 체계, 그리고 집단 행동을 장려하는 국제 네트워크 세계 자연권 연합 간의 글로벌 디렉터 나탈리아 그린님은 에콰도르의 저명한 환경 운동가입니다. 선주민의 권리를 옹호하고 기후위기 해결을 위한 이니셔티브를 실행하는 데 있어 탄탄한 배경을 가지고 지역사회, 과학자, 활동가, 그리고 정부의 협력 관계를 끊임없이 구축해 오신 분인데요. 구조적 변화뿐 아니라 인류와 지구의 관계를 재정립하기 위한 문화적, 윤리적 변화를 촉구하는 나탈리아 그린 사무총장님의 이야기를 들어볼 텐데요. 궁금하신 점은 강연 중간중간이라도 계속 패들릿에 연사별 게시판에 질문 남겨주시면 저희도 활발한 이야기 나눌 수 있을 것 같습니다. 네, 세 번째 강연, 나탈리아 그린 사무총장님께 청해 듣겠습니다.
Thank you, everybody, and I hope you're having a good night. It's very early for me in Ecuador. It's 6:30 in the morning in Ecuador, and it's my delight to be here with you all today. I want to thank you because bringing the voice of the rights of nature to Korea is a real pleasure. So I'm gonna start sharing my screen here. Can you please confirm if you can see it? Maybe with a thumbs up, someone? Okay, perfect. Well, thank you very much. As I was saying, I'm from Ecuador. My name is Natalia Green. I'm the director of the Global Alliance for the Rights of Nature. I am also the secretariat for the International Rights of Nature Tribunal. And I've been delighted to be working with the Rights of Nature idea since very early. I've been working with the Rights of Nature for the past 17 years. And it's been my pleasure to understand that this is not just an idea or a job. This doesn't really seem or look like a job for me. This is a transformation. This is a paradigm shifter. This is the reason why that gives me hope in life. And I hope that I can transmit that to you all today. So something that I really like when I give talks about the rights of nature is to use this phrase from Ilya Pregonini. And it says, when a system is far from equilibrium, small islands of coherence in a sea of chaos have the capacity to shift the entire system. And why do I see this and understand this as a real thing happening? Is that we don't need to change the whole system tomorrow. We don't need to convince absolutely everybody about this idea of the rights of nature, about this transformation with the earth. We need to change enough people so we can become these islands of coherence in a sea of chaos. This is what we need to do, and I truly believe this is what's happening with the rights of nature movement. And believe me, I've been working with the rights of nature for 17 years, and it always gives me hope when I see other countries and other movements and other people around the world working for this. And I'm so delighted to see that you are working with the rights of nature in Korea. That gives me hope that we're definitely going in the right direction, and we are indeed creating these islands of coherence. So why rights of nature? Well, because environmental law has not been enough. Environmental law only tells you how many times you can hit your slave, how many times how much you can pollute the water, how much mercury you can put into the water, how much pollutants you can put into the water. It's telling you how much you can hit your slave. The environmental law is not telling you that you need to treat nature differently. It's only telling you how much you can continue polluting and mistreating nature. So the rights of nature deserves to be a new paradigm because you need to treat nature, understand that nature is indeed a subject of rights, and that we need to change how we relate to nature because we are nature protecting itself. And that is the big difference. So of course nature has rights. How can a corporation have rights if it's an entity that doesn't even exist? When nature is alive, when nature gives us light, oxygen, food, when we know that nature is alive. You were talking and mentioning the animals. We know that nature is alive, not only from the animals that we see, but even to the rocks and the mountains that we feel and that are part and around us. So it's really interesting because when we started the Rights of Nature movement in 2010, actually right now is our 15-year anniversary, we used this quote from Victor Hugo that said, "There's nothing more powerful than an idea whose time has come." And this was 2008 and 2010. This was very early in the movement, and really it was something that was starting to pick up, but it wasn't so strong. I see that now it is definitely an idea whose time has come. It's something powerful that is not going to be able to stop us. In 2018, we gathered around in this room with everybody who was working with the rights of nature. All of the people that are working with the rights of nature, including you all, wouldn't fit in one room anymore because this movement has grown exponentially. And it has grown so much because it makes sense. It makes sense as an emerging, powerful global movement that is transforming human consciousness, redesigning failing consulting economic and social structures, and creating a framework to live in harmony with nature, grounded in the recognition that nature has rights and that Mother Earth has rights. This is a picture that I found very recently, and this is a picture of me in our constitution in 2008. So I wanted to share that with you all because, as Linda was saying in the last presentation, this constitution of 2008 was ratified this last Sunday. And I'll tell you a little bit more about it. But I want to say that in the constitutional process in 2008, we were able to identify and to recognize that nature has inherent rights and that those need to be recognized in the highest legal tool that we have, and that is our constitution. So Ecuador in 2008 indeed recognized that nature is not an object, that nature is not a resource, that nature is a source of life, that nature is a subject that needs to be respected as a legal entity. And this caused a real big global movement. And you can see then that in 2010 there was a conference of the World Conference for People for Climate Change and the Rights of Mother Earth that was held in Bolivia. We then created the Global Alliance for the Rights of Nature in 2010, and we are celebrating, as I said, our 15-year anniversary of a movement that has grown now to 40 countries. So I invite you to see this animation now, where you can see that there was a little town in the US called Tamarcuaburo that passed an ordinance, but it was thanks to Ecuador that passed the constitutional amendment in 2008 that the world, as you see, is starting to come in colors. Come in colors with countries giving rights of nature. We have 2 countries that now have legal laws, national laws, one in Panama and in Bolivia. National laws that have been amazing, especially in countries like Panama that are really leading the way. Panama right now, I just came back from Brazil, from COP, is a country that is doing a nature's pledge for the rights of nature, is a country that has been able to stop a large open pit mine in the country, has been able to pass a legislation for turtles, and so on, only since it was able to incorporate the rights of nature in a national law in 2022. We have a really growing movement on the rights of nature, especially regarding ecosystems and rivers. But this movement has grown much and much more, arriving now to 40 countries that have advanced the rights of nature. 22 have legal advancements. I mean legal advancements when I say a national law, an ordinance, a recognition of an ecosystem like a river. And this is what I mean with national legal advances. And 18 have projects regarding like the rights of Antarctica, for example, projects regarding the conversations and the changes in Italy, for example, for the Venice Lagoon and so forth. You can see this in very different types of things because in 2008, when we were researching about the rights of nature for our constitution, there were only 5 articles that we found on the rights of nature. One was Christopher Stone's famous article, Should Trees Have Standings? But there were only 5 things that were talking about the rights of nature, like Cormac Cullinan's book. Now, if you go to Google Scholar, you will find more than 25,000 articles written about the rights of nature. The growth of this movement has been exponential, so I'm showing this map for those of you interested in the more academic side. But if you're interested in the more activist side, you can also look at the Eco Jurisprudence Monitor, where you will find more than 500 initiatives that are happening around the world around the rights of nature. You'll find here initiatives that have you'll find documents and the documentation that will allow you to investigate how there's a growing movement for the rights of nature. And I like to see this, if you see my first quote of Ira Pregonini, as these islands of coherence, or as an acupuncture that we're doing to a world that is sick, a world that we know is reaching a tipping point. I came back from Brazil and our scientists are telling us that we don't have more time, that we are losing very, very key time to change the direction where we're driving the world. And this, for me, is an acupuncture that we're doing to a world that is hurting. So the Global Alliance for the Rights of Nature is born really as a network, not as an organization, but as a network that I actually invite you all to join. And it's a network of organizations, individuals that we are organized around hubs. So we have a regional and thematic hubs, regional in Europe, Africa, Latin America, North America, and also the Asia Pacific. So I really encourage you, and I know that Gina from Korea has been very active with the Asia Pacific hub, and I of course encourage you all to become part of this hub. But we also have thematic hubs. The legal, the academic, and the youth hub are ways to get together people that are having their same interests, like they're both all in academic, all lawyers, or all youth that are really trying to promote and push the rights of nature movement and trying to dialogue in their own languages to understand how you can use this tool to really take this to your own territories, not only to other countries, but to your cities, to your local ordinances, to change legislation to incorporate the rights of nature. We've also been able to organize our international rights of nature tribunals that are a space to really listen to the voice of nature, but also to the voice of nature defenders. We've been able to do this around the world, and our goal right now is to really bring this voice also to Asia Pacific and Africa. As I was mentioning, the rights of rivers has been a really amazing way of growing this movement. Here you'll see quite a bit of names of rivers that have rights. If you haven't seen this yet, I will really advise you to read this book from Robert McFarland, Is a River Alive? That also talks about this recognition of the rights of rivers. And it's amazing how much people get engaged with their own rivers, with their own water systems. The river in my city, the Machanga River, has been granted rights last year. In Europe, the first ecosystem with rights, the Mar Menor, is an ecosystem that is really driving the movement in Europe. Small countries, small initiatives like this one from Mariluz Cañaquiri in the Marañón River, it has really led Peru to have the first rights of nature case led by indigenous women. And Mariluz, the person that you're looking at this picture, was the recipient of the Goldman Prize this year, 2025. Last year, it was Maria Teresa Vicente that was the promoter of the initiative in Spain. And as you can see, these are initiatives that are really making sense and that are being awarded around the world. I was recently in Abu Dhabi, where the IUCN granted in the award ceremony for the World Policy Award, 7 out of the 10 initiatives that were awarded were regarding the rights of nature. So this is a moment that is happening. It's no longer an idea that we are sharing, it's an initiative and it's a movement that is happening around the world. And here what I'm bringing is hopefully some good news and some encouragement and some hope about how we can all make this happen. These 2 frogs that you're looking at right now are 2 frogs that we found in Intag. These frogs were living in one of the 2 waterfalls called the Twin Waterfalls. One of them was polluted thanks to mining. The other one was clean. And we found this frog right here that was called Rana arlequinosicuda. This frog was considered extinct and was rediscovered. However, this one was found. For experts in frogs, this is like a dinosaur, they say. It's a really rare frog that didn't have a name. It was a new frog. And we called it, with the help of many people like Leonardo DiCaprio and others, this frog was called the resistance frog. And as little as you see it right here, this frog right here was able to stop the second largest mining company in the world, Codelco, from entering its territory. This is a story that for me gives me lots of hope. Look at this little frog that went to court and won the case against a mining company. So these things can happen. Of course, this is an umbrella species for a beautiful and diverse ecosystem that deserves and has rights, and was able to impede the inclusion of the rights of nature, the mining in its territory. What we're doing now is that we're aiming for big. The rights of nature movement has grown. The rights of nature movement is not only an idea, it's something that is happening. And we came back from Brazil calling for the Declaration for the Rights of the Amazon. This is something important because we're not only aiming for small ecosystems, we're thinking and understanding that big biomes like the Amazon are reaching its tipping point, and it's time for us to recognize that the Amazon has rights and that we need to look at a new governance system for important ecosystems like and biomes like the Amazon. We're doing something very similar to the rights of Antarctica. We need to be giving a voice to Antarctica, this ecosystem that is this silent ecosystem down in the south, this ecosystem that is really fighting against climate change and is so key for the stability of the weather. We're giving a voice to Antarctica, and that is why on December 1st, so in a couple of weeks, we're going to be launching the Declaration for the Rights of Antarctica, and I invite you all to join this initiative as well. And I want to use my last minutes to share that we were just in Brazil, and we had a beautiful gathering. I'm showing you pictures right now of a congregation and a celebration of our 15-year anniversary, where people from around the world, indigenous people, you see here the Maori that were able to give the rights to the Wanganui River. The Wanganui River is a river that is really sacred for the Maori. The Maori say, "I am the river is me." This was out of an arrangement with the government of New Zealand. They said the river does not belong to you or to us. The river has its own personhood. So the river Wanganui has its own rights, and the guardians of the Wanganui River are the Maoris that you see net right here. We were also able to bring people together from Africa, from Brazil, from India, from all over the world to be able to celebrate the Rights of Nature anniversary of the Global Alliance for the Rights of Nature. You'll see here the picture of like everybody who was in the gathering, planning ahead of what's coming up for the movement, this movement that is a growing movement for the rights of nature, understanding that it's important to change a paradigm. It's important to waking up to the fact that laws need to change. And I'm really happy to see that you're not only thinking with a video of changing the laws, but also recognizing that animals have rights. Ecuador was able to recognize the rights of the Estrellita case and expand the rights of nature and ecosystems to the rights of animals. So that is all incorporated, and where we're looking up right now is for the rights of nature. And I want to end up by saying what happened this Sunday that was extremely important. This Sunday, the president of Ecuador wanted to call for a new constitution. The president of Ecuador was calling for a referendum, a national referendum. Elections in Ecuador are mandatory, and we all had to come and vote in order to say yes or no to a new constitution. We were very sure that the government had very good chances of voting. He has a lot of power, a lot of resources, and the whole country of Ecuador had to vote for 4 questions, but especially the question number 4 was risking us to go again and rewrite a new constitution, a constitution that the government of Ecuador really wants to promote extractivism, wants to continue doing big-scale mining and oil development in the Amazon, and we more than 65% of the country told the government, no, we do not want to change our constitution, and the rights of nature were ratified this last Sunday. I'm talking about this because this has been extremely important. This has allowed us to see that there is support for the rights of nature movement around the world. the rights of nature movement is not only happening in Ecuador and in Latin America, as you know, it's happening around the world. And we were able to listen to voices from everywhere in the world saying, Ecuador, do not go back. Do not go back and on all the rights that you have guaranteed, not only for the rights of nature, but also for the collective rights. And that is how the rights of nature were ratified this Sunday. And that is something that I really wanted to thank everybody who was supporting this initiative and this voting that was, of course, in the hands of Ecuadorians, but it was an initiative and a vote that is affecting the whole world. So I'm going to end here just by saying that, of course, there's an urgent need to recognize nature rights and to reshape our relationship with the planet. This is something that we need, and as I was saying, we need to keep on formulating and strengthening these islands of coherence that bring us together and that can really allow us to change a system that is urgently needed to change, a sea of chaos where we're living at. And it's not small to say that all the voices that you've listening in these conferences, Ireland, the voices that you're hearing from Korea and from Ecuador, we're all coming together. Because when I see the negotiation is happening in Brazil, I see that the governments are not doing enough to change a system that is really taking us to a crisis, a polycrisis, a crisis not only for climate and biodiversity, a crisis that is affecting us all, an ethical crisis. Because if we don't understand that nature is alive and that we need to change our systems to incorporate and understand that nature has to be recognized for its rights, then we have an ethical crisis that we also need to take in consideration. So I'm leaving here also some resources, our GARN website, and I invite you to become a member of GARN, the Rights of Nature Tribunal website. That is also something that I was sharing we want to be doing soon enough in the Asia Pacific region. And also, for those of you who speak Spanish, the website that we have for the Ecuadorian cases, where we have more than 70 cases advancing the rights of nature. So I'm going to stop sharing there so I can hear from you. I know my time is up, and I would love to listen if you have some questions for me. And thank you so much for giving a voice to nature in Korea.
네, 감사합니다. 저도 사실 에콰도르의 헌법 개정 움직임에서 과거로 돌아가지 말 것을 간절히 바랬던 사람으로서 또 그 얘기까지 나눠주셔서 너무 뜻깊었는데요. 한 가지 저의 말을 좀 덧붙이자면 강의 그 권리를 인정하는 부분 사례들을 말씀해 주셨는데 저희 4대강 사업을 떠올리지 않을 수가 없죠. 우리 4대강이 자연성을 회복하는 것을 넘어 강의 권리를 인정받는 미래를 좀 상상해 보게 되었습니다. 그럼 남겨주신 질문을 좀 드려볼까 합니다. 먼저 글로벌 디렉터로 활동하고 계신데요. 자연의 권리는 오랜 시간 인류가 탄생한 아프리카, 아시아보다 북미, 남미 중심으로 이루어지고 있는 것 같은데 왜 그런지 말씀해 주실 수 있는지요? 라고 질문을 남겨주셨습니다.
Well, I think that it has developed in a very nice way. Let me change that. Okay. It has developed, especially in Latin America, because we have quite a strong indigenous population. I feel that the fact that not only Ecuador, but all the Andes have all this indigenous population and this idea of the Pachamama, Mother Earth, and also the rest of the country in Latin America, Brazil in particular, with such a big indigenous population, has really these roots and this understanding of nature being our mother. So the Rights of Nature movement is not something that we came up in 2008. It's something that comes from indigenous worldview and is translated into the modern world and the modern legislations on recognizing that nature needs to have rights in modern legislations. However, this is an idea that is coming from indigenous people. However, there are indigenous people all over the world. So I think that this resonates and gets to be understood in many parts of the world. We were very lucky to be able to change our constitution back in 2008 and make sure that not only were we incorporating and translating this concept into the constitution, but also making it more democratic because we were incorporating the rights of the voice of indigenous people and their worldview into our constitution. celebration. However, this can happen all over the world, either if you have indigenous population or not. If you see what happened in Spain with Mar Menor, it came out of a really scientific perspective of what was going on with Mar Menor. Mar Menor had a real case of ecocide in Mar Menor, and by demonstrating that there was ecocide in Mar Menor, they were able to change and to tell the government of Murcia that there was an urgent need to recognize the rights of Mar Menor. So this can happen all over the world, and I'm really hopeful that people from around the world have not lost their relationship to nature, have not lost this understanding that we are nature, that we are sons and daughters of the earth. And this awakening is happening in many parts of the world. So yes, indeed, as much as it has happened a lot in South America, it is happening around the world. And because we are all understanding that if we don't change how we relate to nature, if we don't understand that nature is not only there out there very far in the Amazon, but it's happening around our cities, in our and the rivers that you're saying, those 4 rivers that need to be recognized as rights-bearing entities. If we don't recognize that we need to change how we relate to nature, that what happens to that river happens to you, if we don't change that, then we don't have a hope for humanity. So that is why this global movement, not only in South America, it started strongly in South America, but I hope and I know that it's going to happen around the world.
네, 마지막 질문을 좀 드려볼까 하는데요. 처음 파차마마에 대해 알게 되고 가슴이 두근거렸던 기억이 납니다. 단지 자연의 권리를 인정한다라는 말에서 끝나는 것이 아니라 자연이 순환과 재생을 존중받을 권리가 있다는 것, 자연과 조화로운 삶이 좋은 삶이라는 것을 이야기하는 것이 인상적이었습니다. 최근 에콰도르 대통령이 자연의 권리를 헌법에서 삭제하려는 시도를 하고 있는데 결과를 또 말씀을 해주셨죠. 에콰도르의 현재 여론과 상황이 궁금하다고 하셨는데 부결된 이후에 현지의 여론들은 좀 어땠는지 말씀 주시면 감사하겠습니다.
Thank you for that question. So one thing you mentioned about regeneration, and I think that that's really interesting because we are not only hoping to avoid damage. The rights of nature really wants to prevent damage. So that is interesting because it's not only like environmental law, it's just like trying to do something when the damage is done. So we want to prevent the damage, but we also want to regenerate whatever has been impacted. And we have a lot to do about that in Ecuador. So the sentiment right now in Ecuador is about celebration. We didn't know that we could win. The campaign that we were promoting was a very organic and diverse and cheap campaign because we were doing it with our own resources, not with the resources of the second largest capital in the country that comes from the president's family. And he really wanted to change the constitution to be able to incorporate and to promote mining and oil development and extractivism. So the sentiment right now that we have in Ecuador is a sentiment of celebration. Not only in Ecuador, but the whole world should be celebrating because we should understand that the power of people is bigger than the power of capital, that we are more and we're more together, that we cannot allow our democracy to be taken away from us, that we cannot allow dictatorships and authoritarian governments to be taking away our rights. And I say that because that is something that we see happening in the US and we see happening in Ecuador and we see happening in many countries in the world. And that is something that we need to understand, that the power of people is really important. And that is why the rights of nature is not only a small movement, it's not a conservation tool. We're not making or allowing more national parks to develop. We want to change how we relate to nature. And that is something that we can all do together. And the sentiment now is a sentiment of celebration because we can see that together we can do amazing things, like winning this campaign that it was almost thought to be impossible.
네, 정말 우리에게도 큰 영감을 주는 이야기였던 것 같아요. 에콰도르와 한국을 연결해주신 나탈리아 그린 사무총장님께 저희 부결을 축하하는 박수와 함께 감사를 드리는 큰 박수로 강연을 마치겠습니다. 감사합니다.